That's big and big.
Pretty. Check, do you hear me?
Oh yeah.
You ready?
I am.
So you can see we started right here. So this is the main river channel in this dark blue area. This lighter gray area is the edge I'm speaking about. You can see the grass. This is all hydrilla and eelgrass clumps. And let me just show you how close I am to the edge. So I'm gonna go to the left. There's the drop. 9, 10, and actually right out here it drops to 20. But what I found, these fish like to hang on this edge in any river, not just here on the Tennessee River. They love the current, and I think current makes fish bite even when they don't want to bite. So I would prefer in any river system, if I can find current fish, that's what I want to target, because they tend to bite more frequently than a fish that's in the back of the creek that's not a current fish. So that's what we got going on here on the graph, and we're just going to keep working down this edge, throwing a variety of lures. You can see it's gotten a little windy, it's cloudy, so it's perfect for like a buzz bait. And I don't think a buzz bait's a way to get numbers of bites, but it's a way to catch big ones, and that's what I like to do. We're on a Tennessee River Lake, Guntersville actually, and just doing some fall weather fishing. Water temperatures are dropping. So I'm throwing a buzz bait, a walking bait, swim jig, spinner baits, crankbait, stuff like that. But I think there's a huge misconception that in the fall of the year, as the water temperatures start to fall, that all the fish migrate to the back of creeks. And that's just not the case, especially on a Tennessee River lake that's just full of gizzard shad and threadfin shad. The one thing I do believe is that in the fall of the year, regardless of where you're fishing, it is all about the bait. So you have to find that bait. You know, if you run to the back of a creek here, or on any lake, and you're not seeing any bait, you need to leave. The bait, the colder the water gets, the tighter that bait gets grouped together, and that's, you know, that's what these fish key on this time of year. And so you can see we're out in the middle of the lake. We're on the main river. We got a lot of current flowing this way, and we got some big clumps of hydrilla out here. And we're basically fishing the river edge here. You know, it's 20 feet right here, 5 feet right here, 3 feet over here. And the only thing, this whole stretch here is just loaded with gizzard shad and loaded with threadfin shad. As long as the weather conditions stay stable, I think these fish on this particular lake, I mean, they're gonna stay out here because this is where their food is. They've got everything they need. They've got cover. They don't have to sit here and fight this current. They can hide behind these clumps of grass. And you know, it basically just brings the food to them. I mean, this is the prettiest, greenest hydrilla that I've found. And you can see it's topped out. So this all creates that current break I was talking about. It seems like the bigger fish in this lake that live out here in this river, they like those high spots. They like places that break that current the most. They like to be able to move vertically. And what this allows is it allows a fish to move vertical in the water column and still be comfortable, still have cover, and still feed. You know, he's working pretty hard out there on just a flat of grass, you know, without anything to break that current. There's a ton of current in this river just about year round. So whether it's milfoil, hydrilla, eelgrass clumps, I like those places that provide that vertical cover. I mean, this lake, Lake Guntersville, is notorious for huge grass mats, and honestly, where we're sitting now is one of the biggest grass beds in the peak of the grass season on this entire lake. So what happens is this grass grows, and it'll be just acres and acres of matted up, pretty green grass when it starts in the spring. Then summertime, it all starts topping out, and it starts actually cutting its sunlight off. And when that happens, it forms algae. It actually kills itself. And I have seen cycles where it'll do it twice in a year, and even sometimes 3 times in a year if the weather's really stable. But what happens is it dies off, and that's where the stage we're at now. I would love it if this was a huge matted up grass, because I could get my flipping stick out and frog and do my thing, but we're kind of past that at this point. So what's left is all the shallow water where it has died off is pretty slim pickings. Like it's just like a carpet of some eelgrass and some small little hydrilla clumps. But now what is left is this outside edge, which has been growing and healthy all year because the current keeps that sunlight, it keeps this part from dying off. And that phenomenon kind of happens every year on a Tennessee River grass lake, or even in any other grass lake, such as like a Sam Rayburn or some of the Texas lakes with a bunch of milfoil and hydrilla. So you can see this grass right here, but this grass has been here all year. It's been filtered out. It's always had its own sunlight because this current keeps those scum mats from forming here. The current, the waves and stuff. And there are years when we'll get some big weather and it'll actually blow this away too. But for now, mid-November, and as long as we have stable weather, this grass isn't going anywhere. You know, it's not going to grow a bunch because our days are so short. You know, we're down to pretty short days right now, and the growing season for this grass, it's not great, but it's not gonna die off unless we get some more big fronts. So that's the stuff I like to target. It's the highest, prettiest grass out here on this river, and that's kind of what happens as the whole cycle takes place on these grass lakes every year. But I do agree with you that if I'm looking down at grass that's covered in a bunch of moss and like scum, regardless of the time of year, I just think they like that grass that's putting off oxygen. Normally stuff that's covered in algae or scum is dying. The only exception is going to be what happens on these lakes where it forms this giant carpet, and it's just the safest place for you know, in the summertime this water gets hot. When this cuts its sunlight off and it creates this canopy, this big giant black shady house, I mean, it's just a haven for bluegills and for shad, and those bass go in there and they're just comfortable, they're safe, and you know, that's why this lake is known for frog fishing and flipping, and that's my favorite way to target a fish when you have those giant mats of grass out here. Even when that's the case, even when you have these giant grass beds though, this grass on the outside is very similar. It's very similar because the current keeps all that scum and stuff beat back, and you know, year round out here on the edge where the current's the heaviest is a pretty effective way to target them. You know, it's not always the easiest thing to find. I mean, it's not like this is a giant mat. Spend some time riding around just visually looking. You know, I don't go looking with my electronics for stuff like this. I just visually look as I'm running down the lake. And a lot of times it'll just appear as a little slick spot and a little ripple. But I'll just ride over there. Sometimes it's just floating trash mats. And then sometimes it's a little trash mat like these eelgrass hung up in this hydrilla.
That looks like a bit of a... That's sweet.
Oh, there he is. Big one. Nothing like a good buzzbait bite. Look at that big. Solid one now. Oh yeah. Got it on the front hook too, right between the eyes when they're biting. Little buzzbait, Gunnersville fall bass. Nothing like it, man. We started off in this area and it was windy. You could tell this front's coming, and it was a little too rough, I thought. And it started raining. We put our rain gear on. We got a little bit wet. And as soon, I mean, the second it stopped raining, we've had 4 bites in like 5 minutes, and they were all big ones. And I mean, we're fixing to get after it. I mean, gosh, dog it, dude. Whoa. I mean, that was a gigantic fish. Oh my word, dude. How did he miss this? It's like a 7-pounder. That's bass right there. Oh, he's on it. Yeah, there's a big school of them right here. Big one. Stay hooked up, he's barely hooked. I can see that bait on the outside of his mouth. Look at that. He was hooked a little better than I thought. But it has been a crazy, crazy morning out here. Like we've had every condition you could possibly have. We've had big wind, rain, sun, and now it's slicking off. So we've made a few adjustments. Man, these fish are healthy and pretty. Everybody loves topwater fishing, me included, and I'm not real particular about the lure. I love a frog, I love a walking bait, I love a buzz bait, but to me, it's all dictated by the conditions and the cover you're fishing. And we were throwing a buzz bait earlier today and caught some fish, but it was a lot choppier. I wanted something a little more noisy. I wanted something that would draw a fish from a longer ways. But as you can see, it's slicked off now. I think the fish become a little more wary. And I picked up this walking bait. To me, it's something I can slow down. I can fish it, it's a little more subtle, but it's still, any topwater bait I feel like draws a better than average size fish. So for me, it's dictated, the bait I throw, by the conditions. And let's see if we can't get us another one here, because it is perfect for this particular bait right now. Dude, they're back there blowing up on bait, all in this one little spot. It seems like every fish within 300 or 400 yards is in this one little spot for some reason. And I think, I mean, that obviously the reason is I mean, there's a wad of bait right here. They're coming up in bait, so. He's got it. That's what you call being at the right place at the right time with that right there. Fat, so think they're eating good? Boom! Let's get back in there and get another one. Man, I know it seems obvious about what just happened, but I cannot stress enough the importance of, I call it just getting while the getting's good, because a fish that's actively feeding is prone to make a mistake. You know, it's one thing to trick a fish that's kind of not actively feeding, But if you see that happen, if you see them busting on bait, I mean, I fish tournaments where I literally stand there with a rod in my hand and wait for that to happen, because the fish are so, this water's clear and they're pretty wary. But when they get in that aggressive mode, it is so important to get that bait in there quick and get it in that feeding frenzy that's happening. And that fish that you just saw, it was exactly that. I don't think I could have tricked that fish into biting if he wasn't actively feeding. So super important to be quick, reel in if you just made a cast, and that's usually when it happens. Every fisherman knows that's usually when they're going to bust, is when you throw this way and they bust this way. Get that bait in as quick as you can, make a good cast, and hopefully you'll trick a fish just like that fish that I just did. Oh gosh, that's a big one, dude. Oh, did he break me? No, I got him. He just got me down in that grass, dude. There's 100 fish right there. This is a big one. I don't want to lose my bait because it's the only one in the world. Oh, here he comes. Here he comes. Oh, it's a big one, man. I can feel a head shake. I don't want to get too close and screw it all up, dude. Ah, he ain't big. It's a 3-pounder. Just got me. Oh, he's a pretty good one now. I mean, think he wanted that thing? That is a nice fish right there. He's got it in the side. Yeah. Look at that. Wow, man. I mean, healthy, thick, feeding, gunnerful bass, man. No pain even on my lure. That one's not out yet. That's the only one in the world, but they seem to be liking it pretty good. Look at that. Pretty, man. I mean, talking about pretty fish. Love Lake Gunnersville. They've moved back up just a little bit. Oh, got one right here. That's what I'm talking about. I sped that up. I don't know if you, like, that fish was under it. Little change of cadence got him. Yeah. Think they're eating? If y'all want to know what that is, coming soon. At Arc Fishing. One little tip with a walking bait, especially fishing it around grass like this, is a lot of people get a little impatient. You know, you get a lot of grass hung on your treble hooks, and I'm telling you, like, ripping it out and jerking it out doesn't really get you a bunch of bites with a walking bait. And you can almost finesse a bait through a clump of grass with treble hooks if you just take it slow, kind of just twitch it a few times real easy. I just came through a clump just right there, and the treble hooks were in the grass. I just slowed it down and kind of finessed it through there, and it came through clean. One thing I'll tell you is my confidence is about none if there's a piece of grass on that bait. It affects the action, and you know, it just doesn't look real, and I think the bass can see pretty good. So be trying to finesse it through it. You can do it. You can get those treble hooks to come through there, just similar to a rattle trap or a crankbait coming through grass. Try to use the buoyancy of that bait and just small little twitches with the rod. to get that bait to come clean. If you're around a clump of grass, more than likely you're in a good place to get a bite, so slowing it down helps as well.